this is what you need to remember. SOHCAHTOA. This is your sine function, your cosine function, and your tangent function. Those are the three things that we learned in the last class. This says that the sine function is opposite over hypotenuse. Okay? Let's go ahead. That's what they're asking for. The sine of n. Y'all, and when it's, a lot of times it'll say like, what's a ratio? You'll just remember that a ratio is written as a fraction. This one doesn't ask it like that, but a lot of times it will. What's the trig ratio for the sine of n? Okay, so if I start at n, what is the opposite over the hypotenuse? That's all they want you to write. What's opposite of n? 5 squared of 3, so I'm going to write that down. Over the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. What's across from my right angle? 10. That's the longest side. Now, something happens though. You'll notice there's not a 5 squared of 3 over 10 as an answer. What happens with the 5 and the 10? They reduce to 1/2. So you could write the 1, but I normally don't. What's equal to that? C. The square root of 3 over 2. What don't we understand about that one? Everybody's okay with that one? Okay, and we're still, every time you have to know these things for sine, cosine, and tangent. You're not going to be given this on the test. You have to know that. All right? You memorize that, write it down, and then you'll have it on your test. Now, on this one, they want us to find x. Here's x. Here's our angle. Does everybody see that this angle is what? 75 degrees. Now, I have to decide from my angle, am I using sine, cosine, or tangent? So if you need to, write it down again. You're right, it's tangent. Are we even given the hypotenuse? No, that means it's not the sine function and it's not the cosine function. Both of those had hypotenuse. So it has to be the tangent of that angle. So let me write that. The tangent of that angle, what is my angle? 75. This time we know the angle, so we actually write it. And it's opposite over adjacent. What's the opposite of 75? X. And what's adjacent? What's next to that 75? 22. Now, we have that trig function written there. All you're doing is think, I need to solve for x. So instead of dividing by 22, what do I need to do? Multiply by 22. So when I multiply over here, they cancel out. And then I'm just going to type in my calculator, 22 times the tangent of 75. And let me do that. I'll show y'all. Ryder, for the quiz in a little bit, you can borrow my calculator for that. Just not while I'm recording, okay? So if I was to type this in, though. Oh, wait, you're not taking it. I forgot. 22 times the tangent of 75. Okay? And if I press enter, what does it tell me? 82.1. Does everybody see that? So it's answer I. Anybody not understand that one?
Wait,
So what was our first question then?
Wait, what?
I forgot that you do like the
Why is mine
tan 75 equals.
Change your mode. Okay, well, you forgot how to write it?
Yeah.
Well, just whatever your angle is, that's where you start. They gave you the angle is 75 degrees. So then you had to decide, am I using the sine, cosine, or tangent function? Once we figured out it was tangent, you write that, the tangent of that angle. Wrote that down. What is the tangent? It's opposite over adjacent. So you write that down. Then you're just solving for x. Remember, you're either going to multiply to solve for x, or what was the other thing that we did? We switched them. We kind of switched sides. I might show you one of those in a second. So we'll go to mode on your... Yeah, you've got it? Okay, is that what the problem was? Okay.
So, like, if it was, like, sine, would you put sine 75?
Yeah, you would just type in sine. Whatever function you used, you would type that in.
Okay, so
And that'll give you a different answer.
we know to use tangent when there's no hypotenuse.
Yes. Huh?
Like, how do I know if I need to use sine or cosine?
Okay, say they had given us a hypotenuse, and they didn't give us this 22, okay? then we would know it's opposite and hypotenuse. Which one is opposite and hypotenuse? Sine. What if they had given us this and the hypotenuse? That would be adjacent and hypotenuse, and that would be what? Cosine. That you just have to see what do they give you, and that tells you what function to use. Okay, number 3, it says what's the value of x? So now I'm looking for this angle. I need to know what to write down. Am I going to use the sine function, the cosine function, or the tangent function? So what do they give us? Opposite and adjacent. Which one is that? Tangent. Does everybody understand that that's what they give us, the opposite and the adjacent? So we would write the tangent of that angle. This time they don't give us the angle, so we write down what they do give us. They call it x. So what are we going to call it? X. And then we're going to write what it equals. What does the opposite over adjacent? What is that? 11 over 33. Now, does anybody remember how we find the angle? Because it wants us to find x. That's a trig ratio. If it asked for a trig ratio, then yes, 11 over 33 would be our answer. We don't to tangent inverse. Whenever you look for an angle, you have to do the inverse function.
Is that 10?
That's second tangent. Yeah, tangent to the -1. That's the tangent inverse. The reason is because the only way to move that tangent function to the other side is to take the inverse of it. That's what would cancel it out. That's why it's called that. So I would write this like this. To move the tangent to the other side, it has to change to the inverse. What button is that on your calculator? Second tangent. All right? So you would press, I don't know if you can see it, but it's here's the second, and then here's your tangent button, and it's going to look like that. Tangent inverse of 11 over 33, and it tells us it's 18.4, which would be what? It says nearest degree, so that is 18. Do y'all kind of get that? This is not even the review for the quiz yet. We're going to still review for the quiz. All right, let's look at the next one. A 14-foot long ramp rises at an angle of 22.2 degrees. Y'all, I suggest drawing a picture. A 14-foot long ramp rises at an angle of 22.2 degrees. How long is the base of the ramp? Okay, they want to know this right here. All right, is everybody good with this? So how do they find that? Cosine, very good. The cosine of B equals, no, I'm sorry, the cosine of 22.2, I got ahead of myself. The cosine of that angle equals B over 14. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Yep, so now we just solve for B. So we move the 14, we multiply by 14. 14 times the cosine of 22.2, and what is that? It's 12.9, or 6, which rounds up to what? 13. There's our answer for number 4. Any questions on that one? Okay, let's see. Let's do number 5. It says, what's the value of W to the nearest degree? I don't have enough information for W. I don't have the angle. I only have one side. I need a little more information. So the first thing I need to find is what? V. And then once I have that, then I can find W. So how do I find B? Am I going to use sine, cosine, or tangent of that angle? It's opposite and hypotenuse. Sine. I'm going to say the sine of 65 equals V over 15. Then what would I do? Multiply by 15, and that's going to tell me V. So 15 times the sine of 65, and I get 13.6. Is that what y'all got?
Mhm.
13.6. Now, can I find W? Yeah, I have enough information. So is this sine, cosine, or tangent? I have opposite and hypotenuse. So the sine of W equals the opposite over the hypotenuse. What do you do when you're looking for the angle?
The one.
The inverse, yeah, the -1. The only way to move that sign is to take the inverse. And you would just type this in your calculator. Okay, so I'm going to type in the sine inverse of 13.6 divided by 21. And I get 40.36. So what is that going to be? That's just going to be 40 because it says to the nearest degree. So it's 40. Okay? How does this feel? Better? Are we remembering it a little bit? Let's go ahead and go to I know there's one left or two left, but I'm going to go ahead and go to our quiz review. Okay? I'm not going to take that out. And let me see what I have. Okay, this is the first problem. I'm going to draw it out. I don't want to write on my paper. So I know the two legs of my triangle are 6 and 8. This goes back to lesson 1 and lesson 2 and lesson 3. Okay, it's the first half of the chapter. So I have the legs are 6 and 8. So 6 and 8. How do I find the hypotenuse? What's the Pythagorean theorem? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. These are my two legs, right? The hypotenuse is always the longest side, so it goes over here. So I'm going to plug in the legs so we can say 6 squared plus what? 8 squared equals C squared. Any questions there? You have to remember A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Okay, what is 6 squared?
36.
And what is 8 squared? Okay, and what's 36 plus 64? 100. Then what do? That's C squared, not C. Take the square root of 100. And what is the square root of 100? 10. So there you go. That's how you'll do number 1. Okay? Notice they put 100 here. But y'all, that should not even make sense. If you have leg lengths of 6 and 8, 100 shouldn't even really make sense, right?
Wait, how do you do the square root
On the calculator, okay? You would press this little button. You see this little yellow square root right here on the x squared? And they're opposite. Squaring something and square rooting something are opposite. So that's why they're on that same button. So you would press second x squared, and there's the square root. And then you would type in 100, and it's going to tell you it's 10. Okay? How do we feel about that one? Just like yes. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Just like number 1. Okay, number 2, it says you have a triangle. Here are the side lengths, 3, 4, and 5. Does this form a Pythagorean triple? What does that even mean? Does it make a right triangle? Okay, it would have to be a right triangle. So if I plugged in 3, 4, and 5, does it work? Okay, let's see. 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. Why did I put my 5 over here? It was the biggest one. So whatever your numbers are, okay, you'll put your 2 smaller numbers over here, and the biggest number goes on this side. Let's see if they equal. If they equal, then what? It's a Pythagorean triple. So what's 3 squared? 9. What's 4 squared? And what's 5 squared? So does 9 plus 16 equal 25? Yes. Now let's look at answer choices. So we know they do form a Pythagorean triple, so it's not A or B. So yes, they form a Pythagorean triple, and they're all non-zero whole numbers. Yeah. They can form a right triangle, so they form a Pythagorean triple. No, it's because 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. Okay, and they're not 0. So it's C. Does everybody understand that? Yes? Okay. Let's see.
How many questions are on the quiz?
There's 15 on here. There's 10 on the quiz. That's what I'm looking at. So far, numbers 1 and 2 are just like that number 1 and 2. Okay, but I wanted to go over extras. Then our number 3 is just like this one. So let me go over this one. Okay. I'm going to redraw it. Notice they give us some answers down here. I think all of it is, I know all of it is multiple choice as well. So 10 and 13. So this is 10, this is 13, and here's our right triangle. How would I find, what do they want me to find? Find the length of the missing side. Let's call it something, I'm going to call it X, okay? Or you could call it A or B if you wanted to. So, what's my formula again? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So I'm going to say 10 squared plus X squared equals 13 squared. Does everybody understand why 13 was on the side by itself? Because it's the hypotenuse. So 10 squared is 100. And X squared, and what's 13 squared? Okay. All right, then what do I do? You're going to subtract 100. Okay, and when we do that, we get X squared is 69. Then what? Take the square root, and you can't get a square root of that. There's no perfect square that goes into it. So which one's your answer on that one? A. Okay, let's see what our next one is. Okay, it's just like this one. Number 4, a triangle has sides of length 27, 79, and 84. Is it a right triangle? How do we know if it's a right triangle? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So the entire front page, what are you using? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Not bad, right? So my 2 smaller numbers are which one? 27 and 79. So I'm going to write 27 squared, 79 squared, and my other number was 84. Does this equal? If this equals, then yes, it's a right triangle. So what is, these are going to be big numbers, 27 squared, 729. 79 squared, 6,241. And 84 squared is 7,056. If I add up those 2 numbers, do they equal? No. It was 6,970. That does not equal. So no, it's not a right triangle. Does that make sense, y'all? It had to equal to be a right triangle. So you would say no because 27 squared plus 79 squared does not equal 84 squared. Yeah, it's D. Can y'all tell the difference between B and D? Let me zoom in. B has an equal sign, but what does D say? A not equal. And they don't equal, okay? I didn't know if you could see that or not. All right. Moving on. Are y'all bored?
No.
We need a good review. Oh. Let's see what we have next. There's one. Okay, I have 2 of these, but only one of these is on here. There's one with a 4590 and one with a 306090. Okay, this is now the next lesson that we've already done lesson 1. Everybody should be good with that. Now we're moving on. There's 2 problems on this quiz that are like lesson 2. Okay, only 2 problems. So this is the special right triangles. So the 45, 45, 90, let me draw our picture first. This is when the leg lengths are the same. So I have a 45, 45, 90. If this is 3 square root of 2, then what's this one? 3 square root of 2. How did we find our hypotenuse? The hypotenuse was what?
2 times this
let me see. I get that it's
Well, it's like you already said it, so it was like the shortest.
um
The hypotenuse equals the leg times the square root of 2.
yes. Yeah, it's the leg times the square root of 2. So hypotenuse equals the leg times the square root of 2. What is the leg? What's one of the legs? 3 square root of 2. Okay, so it's going to give you that, and you're going to put 3 square root of 2 times the square root of 2. Okay, what happens with those square root of 2's?
It becomes just 2.
It becomes 2 because the square root will cancel out. So we get 3 times 2, which is what? 6. And that's our answer right here. So let me write this on the board. I will leave this on the board for you for today, not for your test though. But since we're still in the middle of learning all this. So for the 45, 45, 90, the hypotenuse is the leg, I'm going to say 2 times the square root of 2. Okay? And that's all we need for that one. Now let's look at our next problem. I think it looks more like this one on your quiz. It's more like this one. Okay? It says find the lengths of the missing sides. Well, one of them is very easy. Actually, I think you can go ahead and tell your entire answer. Okay? Just by this one thing. Because what's y? 8. Why do we know y is 8? On a 45, 45, 90, the sides are the same. So if this one's 8, then this one is also 8. I think that's the only answer choice with that. Okay, so, but I'm still going to go over it. So we know that y is 8. Let me draw my picture here. I'm trying to save my paper, so I'll have it next year. So I know that that's 8 and that's 8. Now, how would I find my hypotenuse? Same thing. Look over there on the board. The hypotenuse is what? The leg times the square root of 2. Does everybody get that? And that's all you can do with that one. So it would be, they found, what is 8 times the square root of 2? They just put it in their calculator. I don't know why they did that. Is everybody good with that though? I would have left it like this, but they just plugged 8 square root of 2 in their calculator. 8 square root of 2, and they get 11.3. What did they get? 11.3. Does that make sense? It's just like that on the quiz. Okay. Well, I say that. Let me just make sure. That is the second page. Yeah. All right. The next one, we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. All right. And it's one like either 7 or 8. So on a 30, 60, 90 triangle, do y'all remember our 2 rules for this?
Isn't it like something times 2?
It's 2 things that we have you have the long leg thing and a short leg. The hypotenuse is short leg. Yeah. I'm going to write it on the board. I will leave this one up there for you as well. So I know that's recording. 30, 60, 90. The hypotenuse is 2 times the short leg. Or the other thing is, the long leg equals s squared to 3? That's what I thought. The long leg, equals s times the square root of 3. Okay? Those are the 2 things that we can use. They're going to be up here. Alright? Because I know this is not easy. So let me draw this triangle. I have 5x 60 degrees.
You can tell what kind of triangle it is.
Okay, look at the numbers. If this one they gave us 45. So which one is it? The 45. This one they give us 60. So I mean they're gonna show you which one it is by giving you the angles. So on this one I'm looking for, let's see, I have my hypotenuse. What am I looking for?
Your leg.
One of the legs. Is it the shorter one or the longer one? If you need to, this would be 30. Write that down. It's the longer one. How do I know it's the longer one?
Opposite.
It's the opposite of the 60. 60 is bigger. right? So that means that that's the longer leg.
Okay.
30 smaller, so 5 is the shorter leg. Yes.
Say you needed to find, say the 30 and the 60 were swapped, and you needed to find the smaller one.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be 10? I don't know.
Yeah, you would plug in, you would use the top formula
Okay.
on that. But on ours, they're saying, okay, we need to find the longer leg. Let's write down what that is. The longer leg is what? Short leg times the square root of 3. What is the short leg? 5 times the square root of 3. That's going to be my x. Okay, so do we see this answer? Yes, we do. Right here. All right. Let's look at the next one because this one's got a little bit more to it where we're going to use both formulas. And on your quiz, let me see which one it's more like. It's more like the one we just did, though. Okay, where we'll just use the one formula. But let's still go over this. Okay, let me just draw the picture. I have a 30, 60, 90. And that's 16 squared root of 3. Okay, here we go. I need to know, okay, this is 60, so that's my long leg, that's my short leg. They only give me the hypotenuse. So which formula am I going to have to use first? The one with the hypotenuse. Does everybody see that? So I would write this formula down. It's over there on the board. So the hypotenuse equals 2 times s. How would I solve for s? Divide by 2. And what's 16 divided by 2? Yeah, so I have 8 square root of 3 is my short leg. That's this one right here, right? Does everybody agree that y is the short leg? Because it's across from 30. So that one is 8 square root of 3. Now how do I find the long leg? What does that formula say? The long leg is short leg times the square root of 3. What's my short leg? 8 square root of 3 times the square root of 3. What's that going to be? 8 times 3, which is what? 24. The long leg would be 24, huh? This one's not on there. It was the one before it. Okay, I tried to pick easier ones for y'all on those two problems. Okay. Then the next page, and remember this one has extra, it's not this long. Okay, there's only 10 problems. These, I like these. There's one of them on there. So how do you find the angle? We already talked about this on the bell ringer. When you want to find an angle, you have to move that tangent over. So you have to what? Take the inverse. That's it. This is all on the calculator. You would press tangent inverse of 65. So second tangent, 65. And what do we get? 89.12. It's D. How was that one? Okay, let's do another one. On this one, what would I do for that? If you're looking for the angle, you have to move that cosine. The only way to move it is to take the inverse of it. So second cosine, that's cosine inverse of what? 2 divided by 5. And what do we get for this one? 66.42. There it is. It's B. Those are not bad, right? Okay. So we'll remember that. Let's see. Now we're to the, yeah, and there's only one of those. Then we have 3 on here for the next part with the tangent, cosine, and sine. All right. So it says, what are the ratios for sine x and cosine x? Y'all, a ratio means you're going to write it as a fraction, right? 2 to 3 could be written as 2 over 3. That's a fraction. For every 2 boys, there's 3 girls. 2 to 3. 2 over 3. So your answer is going to be written as a fraction. So let's start at x. What is the sine of x? Sine is what? Opposite over what? Hypotenuse. Square root of 119 over 12. Guess what? That's the only answer with that. But let's keep going. Let's check the cosine. What's cosine of x? What does cosine mean? Adjacent over hypotenuse. What is the adjacent? 5 over 12. So that's that one. Any questions on that?
We don't have to solve anything like that?
It's going to be just like that. I'll double check and make sure. Yep, just like that. Okay? Let's look at the next one. It's also about tangent for P and Q. So what is tangent? Opposite and adjacent. So the first one, they want us to start at what letter? P. What's opposite over adjacent? 16 over 12. They don't reduce. I don't understand why, but you just have to go with it. So which one says the tangent of P is 16 over 12? C. But let's check the next one. Now they want us to start at what letter? Q. So if I go to Q, the tangent is opposite over adjacent, which is what? 12 over 16. Is that what that one says? Yes. Then that's the...
We did it when we do 3 over 4.
Yeah. So if it was short answer, really they would still have it written like this, but I would want you to reduce it. For some reason they didn't. I guess they just want you to get the idea of it. Is everybody good so far? We're almost done. Then I think there's one of these. So I just have some extra examples, okay? Just so we've already done 2 of the trig problems. There's one more trig problem on the quiz. So on this one, it wants us to find x. Actually, on all 3 of these problems. I'm just giving you different ways you can do this. So what's our angle? It's 40 degrees. So am I going to use sine, cosine, or tangent? If we start at 40 degrees, you're going to use, okay, if it was cosine, it would be adjacent over hypotenuse. We don't have a hypotenuse. So it's tangent. So I'm going to write the tangent of 40. The tangent of 40 equals what? 4 over x. Now normally, all of today we've been multiplying. What are we going to have to do on this one? This one was the one that's different. It's where we switch, right? You have to switch the x and the tangent of 40. Y'all remember that rule? Yeah. So I'm going to write x equals 4 divided by the tangent of 40. When your variable's in the denominator, you can just switch them. So what is 4 divided by the tangent of 40? I'll check it.
It's 4.76.
Yep, or 4.77, something like that. So which one looks like that? B.
How would you do that in your calculator?
You just type it in exactly, like just do 4 and then divided by just the normal division sign, and then type in tangent 40 and see if you get that. Did you get it? Yeah, okay. Let me see which one it's like on the quiz. No, we cannot take a nap. It is just like, it's just like this one, and this one's the same thing too. Okay, it's just like these. All right, let's do this one. Am I going to use sine, cosine, or tangent? The tangent of 30, it's going to be tangent, I think, on your quiz as well. So, the tangent of 30 equals what? Opposite over adjacent, x over 10. So, on this one, what am I going to do, though? I don't switch them.
How do you know not to switch them?
Okay, when the variable's in the denominator, you switch.
Okay.
When it's in the numerator, you multiply. You are either going to switch or multiply. Okay, I think it's going to be switch, so just be prepared for that. But in this case, can you tell you would multiply by 10? Yeah. Multiply by 10. Somebody said no. So just type in your calculator 10 times the tangent of 30. And you should get 5.77, which looks more like what? 5.8. Answer B. Okay? I think we'll stop there because that's what the one, there was one left. No, you're going to take your own quiz. All right, the first thing you're going to look at, it's at the top of your worksheet, and we're going to talk about, is it an angle of elevation or an angle of depression? Something that you may remember, let me cover this up. Look, if I have parallel lines cut by this transversal, what do we know about angles 1 and 2? That they are equal. They are alternate interior angles, so they are equal. One of them is an angle of elevation. One of them is an angle of depression. What does elevate mean? To go up. Which one of these angles looks like it's going up? 2. Okay, that one's going up. Now, depression, you can think of down, right? People are down. But which one looks like it's going down? It's angle what? 1. Okay, what about angle 3? What would you call it? Angle of depression. It's going down. And number 4 is angle of elevation. So that's numbers 1 through 8 on your worksheet already. Okay? All you're doing is looking at, describe each angle.
What did you put D for depression, D for elevation?
That's what I'm.
That's fine. Yeah, I just want to know if it's an angle of depression or an angle of elevation. And here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 different pictures. So that's all you're doing. Depression or elevation. Angle of depression or elevation. And remember, 1 and 2 would be equal. 3 and 4 would be equal. 5 and 6 would be equal because they're alternate interior angles. 7 and 8 would be equal.
Wait, I still don't get
Okay, all right. The next part, they give us this picture. This man, where is he looking? He's looking up, so we call this an angle of elevation. And now guess what? Well, let's see what all it's asking. It says that suppose you stand 53 feet. They labeled this as 53 feet. Don't look at what we're doing yet. Okay, we're just going to talk about it. This is 53 feet from this wind farm turbine. Your angle of elevation is 56.5 degrees. Now, they give you a little bit more information. Your eye level is 5 foot or 5.5 feet above the ground. That means from here to here, he's what? 5.5 feet tall, up to his eyes. Okay, so that means from here to here. All right, we're going to add that in a little bit. So, anyway, just leave that alone. And it says, how tall is it from the ground up? So what we need to find is x, right? Does everybody see that? And we're going to use our sine, cosine, and tangent. And what do we know that this is supposed to be? 5.5 feet. Because we need to find from here all the way to the top. So let me draw my triangle, and I'll show y'all how to work this one out. All right, so if I have this triangle, I'm going to go ahead and add this as 5.5 feet. Okay, is everybody good with me writing that? It gave me that information for a reason. This was 56.5 degrees. I know that was messy, sorry. Yeah, 56.5 degrees. This is x, and this is 53 feet. Now let's just leave this alone for a minute. And I want to find x. What am I going to use? Sine, cosine, or tangent? Tangent, because it's opposite over adjacent. So see, this is the same thing we've been doing now. All right, we just have word problems. What? Why are you laughing at me? The tangent of 56.5. If you missed, you may want to watch a video. You'll have to, because this is.
I gotta watch that video.
Yeah, you will have to. It's opposite over adjacent. So that is x over 53. Is everybody good with that? Okay, so that's tangent. Now what do I do to solve for x? Multiply. Remember, you're either going to switch them or multiply. And in this case, we multiply by 53 and plug that in your calculator.
Would you switch them on division?
If the x was in the denominator, that's when you switch. Yes. Shh. Y'all use working this out, or y'all just chit-chatting? So we get what? 80.07 or 80.1? Yeah, I'm good with that. X is 80.1. Is that your answer? Is that how tall it is?
It's 80,
No. You would add,
85.6.
yeah, this, and you get 85.6. They got 85.5. They just rounded a little different. That's fine. 85.6 is what we got. How is that? It's the same thing. We just added one step. Let's look at our next problem. In this problem, I want to point out why the angle of elevation and angle of depression is so important. If this is 3 degrees, then what do you know about this angle right here? It's 3 degrees. That's what we're going to have to use because they're going to give us pieces of triangles and it's not enough. So what we have to use is, hey, let's move that angle right here because we know that's the same. Let me draw this picture and we'll do this problem. And we're almost done with this whole lesson.
Hot in here.
Are y'all hot?
No.
I'm like comfortable.
No.
So this is 3 degrees. They tell us that this is X. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for how far this plane is from the airport. Here's our plane. I'm going to call it P. You can't see that, sorry. And then I'm going to call this the airport right here. So this plane has to descend, but I know that this is a 3 degree angle. Then what do I know this is? A 3 degree angle. That's what we're using. And they tell me that the height of the plane is 2,714 feet. 2,714, but wait, that's not what all they wanted to tell me. Starting from a height of 2,714 feet, they give me something else, above sea level, the airport is 1,007 feet above sea level. So what's the height of the plane from the airport? What's this height going to be? You would have to subtract 1,007. Okay, because they're both above sea level. Does everybody understand sea level? You don't want to be at sea level, right? That means it could flood really easy. Okay, so like New Orleans, it can flood really easy, right? Because what's the sea? What are they at? We'll
Above sea
Google.
level.
They're what?
Way above sea level.
Way above? We'll Google it in a second. Anyway, but you want to be way above sea level, otherwise you can flood. So the airport is 1,007 feet above sea level, and here's where the plane is above sea level. So to find their distance, what do? Subtract. That would tell you what this height's going to be. So I've got it right here, 1,707. 1,707 feet. How do I find X? How do I find how far that plane's going to have to go to the airport?
I don't know.
That distance. It's either sine, cosine, or tangent. Sine of 3, right, because that's my angle. The sine of 3 equals, I'm going to zoom out a little bit.
What would your hypotenuse be?
What would it be? This is my 90 degree angle, so it's X.
What about the 3 that's there?
No, this is that angle. If this angle was 3, then this angle was 3. Your X, I could have written it right here. Is that better? Writing it more in the middle? Okay, there you go. So it's the sine of 3 equals opposite over hypotenuse. What do we do when the variable's in the denominator?
Divide.
Yeah, you're going to switch and we end up dividing. So we get 1,707 divided by the sine of 3, whatever that number is. And when I type that in my calculator, it says 6.2. Okay, the airplane is 6.2 miles from the airport.
Oh,
That doesn't sound right.
Huh?
Wait, I did inverse on the quiz.
Yeah, so did I.
Is that
Were you
wrong?
looking for your angle?
Oh,
It was
No, I did that right.
over the X stuff, but
If it's over X, then you switch them. When you're looking for an angle, that's the only time you do the inverse. If your X was right here, the sine of X equals, when you have to move that sign, that's when you do the inverse. Let me see. Let's look at some on this worksheet together.
What do you put on the calculator?
I did 1707 divided by the sine of 3. Oh, the reason they got this. Hold on. They got 32,616 feet. Okay, is that what you got? How many miles is that? That's how they got the 6.2 miles. This is also correct. That's also correct. That's feet. Okay. I'm glad you pointed that out. Is it 620? Let me look that up. So I don't tell you wrong. Well, this is not working. 5,280. I couldn't remember if it was 6 or a 2. 5,280 feet in a mile. Okay, let's keep going. You're going to start on some of this worksheet. I hope you've been paying attention instead of just talking.
Yeah, I've been paying attention.
Okay, I know you have. I might need to separate some of these boys.
Don't run by me.
Okay. It says find the value of x. Now, this one, they're not giving us a height. If I'm writing, you're writing. Okay, so far you've done 1 through 8. We still have 17 minutes. So we're going to get through a lot of these. Okay. I'll do number 9, and you're going to do 10, 11, and 12. So number 9, you're just deciding, am I using sine, cosine, or tangent? Cosine. Cosine, because we have what? Adjacent over hypotenuse. So I would write the cosine of 40 equals x over 125. Then what do? Multiply by 125. And let's see, 125 times the cosine of 40. And I get 95.8. Because they wanted us to round to the nearest 10. So I get 95.8 is my answer.
Would that be what? Would that be?
In feet. Is that what you're asking? If this is in feet, then this is also in feet. Okay, now you're going to do 10, 11, and 12. And then I'll do another one with you in a minute. We're not. So y'all are doing 1 through 19. Here's number 13. Just make sure you set these up. Draw a picture. You can't do these without a picture. A person is standing 40 feet from a flagpole. Okay, this is 40 feet from the flagpole. They can see the top of the pole at an elevation of 35 degrees. So this is 35 degrees. And here's the top of this flagpole. 35 degrees. Here's our little flag. Okay. Here's the flagpole, or whatever. The person's eye level is 4 foot from the ground. So I guess the flagpole's a little bit longer. And that's 4 feet. Does everybody agree with that? Yeah, because this is how tall they are. Yay, drawing skills. Okay, what's the height of the flagpole? I'm going to call this H. But H is not just from here to here. What else is it? This other 4 feet. Does everybody understand that? They give you that information for a reason.
So when you get the H over H, we have to add.
You just add the 4. Yeah. So I'm going to say, let me just use my 40, my H, and that is a 35 degrees, not 350. So do I use sine, cosine, or tangent? This is always your right triangle.
Tangent.
You're going to use tangent. The tangent of 35, and in real world problems, that's a lot of time what you use, because the right angle, you usually know a distance and a height. Yeah, like you can find the angle of elevation of the sun, or you can find the height of a tree using shadows. We'll do that in trig. It's really neat, huh?
I think snipers use that.
Yeah. So I have this right here. It uses a lot of trig because they have to, but they also have to take into effect the wind. There's wind, but then they have to find their angle of elevation, and you know that there's gravity as well. So when they shoot that bullet, it's going to go down on its own. So when they have to use trig, well, now there's devices, computers, but before all that, they would have to use trig to calculate at what angle
Is it
to shoot.
28?
Let me see. The tangent of 35 equals opposite over adjacent. So I would multiply 40 times the tangent of 35. Let me get my calculator. 40 times the tangent of 35. Did I start this back? Yeah. Oh, hold on. 40 times the tangent of 35. Press the wrong button. And I got 28.00. So it's just 28 is this height. But what's the height of the entire flagpole? 28 plus 4, it's 32 feet. Okay, now you're going to try number 14 and 15, and y'all can already do 16 through 19. What I'm going to do is set up the triangles. You try to do it on your own. I'm not going to work through them, but I'll set them up and show you in a second how you should have set them up so you can check.
And they always